What's going on, guys? Fizz here once again. So real quick before we start, some updates. Today is the end of Monday. So today was gonna be my Blade Flurry POB, but I'm postponing that upload till tomorrow night for me, which will be tomorrow morning for you guys. But I'm postponing that one because I'm hopeful that they will release gym info tomorrow, so I'll be able to make that video with like some more information available. So instead, I did the POB that I did today, which is Vaal Flicker. First and foremost, I obviously HCSSF, so it needs to be HSF viable. First impressions is the build actually looks crazy strong. I hope like a softcore content creator doesn't like make a crazy video about this and then get this nerfed before the league starts, because it, like, on paper it looks insane. The damage that I was able to get is incredibly high, and I think you're gonna see videos this league of people in softcore trade like just straight one-shotting bosses with Vaal Flicker. Anyway, I'll get into that later, but updates before that. Tomorrow's Tuesday, obviously league starts on Friday. That only leaves me like 3 days realistically for uploads. I've been doing one upload a day. Tomorrow on stream, I'm gonna have to lay out all of the videos that I still need to do. So there's still POBs that need to go out, and I still need to do like recommended starters and stuff like that. So just keep your eye out. The upload rate may randomly spike like either tomorrow night or Wednesday, from like 1 video a day to like 3 videos a day, just to get everything that I want to get out before the league starts. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, so Vaal Flicker. If I call it Vaal Blade Flicker, forgive me. I was swapping between Vaal Flicker and Vaal Blade Flurry a lot during stream, the POBs. So I just, for the last hour and a half on my stream, I was saying Vaal Blade Flicker. So if I say it and I don't notice it, just ignore it, and you know what I mean. Excuse me. Okay, so there's a few. there were 2 big ideas in like damage delivery systems that I was thinking about when it came to Flicker, and the first is Bleed, and the second. This is a really good YouTube channel. Check them out. The second is Impale. Now, ultimately, I went with, I think both are very good and have a lot of potential. I went with Impale. Now, why Impale on Flicker Strike? Most people play this crit. Most people play this like Herald of Ice, Hatred, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing. Vaal Flicker, the wording of the skill and how it functions is imperative to the entire build. This is not... like, this is a Vaal Flicker build first and foremost, then a Flicker build, because this is how we're gonna get most of our damage. For clearing, it's just normal Flicker Strike, right? But all of our single target damage is coming in the form of Vaal Flicker Strike. So what does it do? Repeatedly teleports to enemies and hits them, inflicting a wound but dealing no damage. After the repeating finishes, each enemy hit is hit by the total damage of their wounds, which are removed. So this attack repeats 25 additional times, 10% increased attack speed per frenzy charge, which is normal Flicker stuff, 70% less damage with ailments, and 30% chance to gain a frenzy charge on hit. Okay, so here's the thing. 70% less damage with ailments. You may say, well, okay, well, if you hit them 25 times. So effectively what this means is you will do 25 hits worth of damage in 1 hit. That is effectively what this means. So you may think, oh, well, 70% less damage with ailments, that's pretty bad. Well, 142% effectiveness of added damage is still, that's like 7.5 hits on a bleed. And if you don't go with Crimson Dance, that's still 1 very, very strong bleed. So you could go bleed with this. But I decided to do Impale. Now, why did I decide to do Impale? Well, here's the cool thing. You need to deal damage to impale something. Even if I have 100% pale chance, if I hit something, but I don't deal any damage, I won't impale it. Because what Impale does is store 10% of the damage you deal. Well, if you're not dealing any damage, you're not impaling. So, I decided to pair Vaal Flicker Strike with one of my favorite nodes. You guys know what's coming. Impaler. So Impaler has been largely dead for a long time. It can actually really, really help a lot of pure Fizz builds with clear speed. and helping them clear at the expense of breaking their single target damage. You guys saw this in my Sunder build last league, where you had to, you mapped with Impaler because it gave you crazy map clear, but when you wanted to do like bossing, like pinnacle bosses, you had to unspec this node. Well, here's the cool thing about this build. You click this and you never unclick it because it is the crux of the entire build. It was very cool to actually build something around, like completely around Impaler again. And there was a lot of math behind this, like a lot of math. So if there are small errors or stuff, do forgive me. It should all work like this. If it doesn't, again, these are just early POBs. This is not a build guide. This is not, you know, these are just experimental pieces that I'm trying to theory craft around the new stuff because I want to have fun because, you know, we haven't had balance changes or new skills in forever. So you know, got to make my own content here. So this is really cool though. Like this is actually very, very cool the way this works. So what Impaler does, if you guys don't know, is when your hits impale enemies, also impale other enemies near them. So this is the clear component. So when we're flicker striking, we will have melee splash via the tree, right? We will have +2 strikes because we will have one from Tribal Fury. The mastery is being changed to +1. I just put nothing in there for now. I just clicked one of the masteries to signify that it's taking a passive point, but the one that we're using isn't yet in the game. So we get +2 to strike nearby enemies. So we're getting three strikes. We have melee splash and Impaler. So I tested this today on stream with melee splash gem and only +1 strike, and the clear is insane. It's incredibly good. You one-shot everything. It is very, very good. So for clearing, it absolutely works. Now, how does this affect single target? Because you think, well, okay, you impale an enemy 5 times, and then for 4 seconds after they're impaled, they can't be impaled again. Why is this good? Well, I'll tell you why. When you hit, you automatically inflict your max impales, which is 5. You will inflict 5 impales with 1 hit. That is how this works. So if I hit an enemy, and the way Impale works, for those of you who don't know, is baseline without any Impale effect. This is what Impale effect does. It will scale this. But baseline, when you hit something, it will store 10% of the damage dealt as an Impale stack. Now, if you're playing champion or something, you can get additional impales, but if you click Impaler, it will lock you at 5, even if you're playing champion, right? So here's the thing. If I hit an enemy, and I have a 100% chance to impale, I hit them for 100 damage, it will store 10% of that damage, right? And then if I hit them again, it'll store 10% of the next hit's damage, and then blah, blah, blah. And then it'll take 5 hits to get 50% of my damage stored. That will then be applied to every attack, right? But with Impaler, if I hit an enemy for 100 damage, it will effectively store 50 damage on them as that Impale. And then my next 5 hits will have really strong Impales up front. And then I just won't have any Impales for 4 seconds, right? I hope I explained this in a decent enough way. So the core mechanic here, as you can probably realize what, what's coming at this point, is that because we deal no damage with Vaal Flicker, we hit 25 times. And then basically we do 25 hits of damage all at once. With Impaler, that means we do 25 hits of damage all at once that then gets stored, that then gets an Impale on it, right? So the way that you would math this out is 25 Flicker Strike does 2,500% more damage, 25 times damage, right? So our average damage for this hit would be 4,628,000 with the current stuff. There's a lot of math in here. Okay, so just at a baseline to give you guys an idea of how this would work is you would take this number, right? We'll do some quick math, right? So you take this number 4268504.2, all right, and you're going to take 50% of this because we're going to take 50% of that damage as Impale. So 50% of that, which is 2.3 mil. And then our next 5 hits on this enemy with normal flicker after this is finished will all deal this amount. So we'll times this by 5, and then we add the base hit amount back to it. 504. So you pop Vaal Flicker, And then you would have to flicker strike 1.5 times after this because you have multi-strike, right? To get this damage. But this is a big hit, right? This is one-shotting at this point. This is one-shotting T16 map bosses. One-shotting, right? So a lot of the mechanics behind this build really revolve around Impaler and one-shotting stuff. So the important note here, the mechanics, if you're worried about bossing, mapping will be incredibly smooth. Map bosses will get one-shotted. Any tanky enemy in the game, you will absolutely one-shot with this. Now, what about real bossing, pinnacle bossing? Well, here's the thing. Vaal Flicker Strike needs 30 souls. For those of you who have maybe played meta skills in the past, it's the same amount as Vaal Detonate Dead. But it has a soul gain prevention of only 6 seconds. So your use time of this with the attack speed I have in the PoB is going to take about half of that time. Which means that by the time your Vaal Flicker Strike ends and you've applied your 5 hits, the cooldown will almost be gone from the soul gain prevention. And then on bosses, you will gain 6 souls for every 1% of life you deal. Or 2% of life you deal, I think. I had this up. I had to double check. Either way, it's 1 or 2% of the boss's life for 6 souls with a 1 second cooldown. So you will be able to get off a lot of Vaal Flicker Strikes during bossing, especially if it is any kind of boss that has ads. We're thinking like Shaper, Maven, stuff like that. You'll be able to get tons of Vaal Flicker Strikes off. The one boss, very similar to Vaal Detonate Dead, that will absolutely brick this build is Cirrus, okay? Because the way Cirrus works is he has a lot of phases, but the way that he works is like you get him down to like half health or whatever the first time, and then he heals back up, and then you get him down to 1/3 health, and then he heals back up. When he heals, when you damage him again, that doesn't actually count as dealing a percentage of his life and damage. Does that make sense? So in these cases, you're not actually getting anything back. I'll be honest, I don't really remember if Shaper works the same way, but the caveat there is that it doesn't really matter because Shaper, when he does phase, you get to go through the ad phases. And because you get to go through the ad phases, you get, so like you're killing a bunch of monsters, so you're filling your Vaal Flicker Strike back up anyway. So it doesn't actually matter in that case. But for Cirrus, there is no such luck, right? There's no ads in that fight, and you don't get any souls back when he heals and a new phase begins. So when you get him down to 1/3 HP, and he heals back all the way to like 3/4, you won't get any souls all the way from 75% damage back down to 1/3 of his HP. You won't get any souls for any of that. I don't know if that's actually intended or not. It doesn't really make any sense. They've never really addressed it, but at the very least, Cirrus will be total pain champ on this build. Honestly, if you're gonna fight Cirrus, it might even be worth it to just unspec Impaler for him specifically. Maybe not though, because Vaal Flicker Strike still does a ton of damage. Like you're still gonna be able to get it probably twice in the fight and hit for, with this PoB, about 19 million for both of them. So that's still a lot of damage. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, rough HP numbers, Maven has about 50 mil HP, Shaper has about 70 mil HP, and I think Cirrus is also like 75-ish mil or somewhere in there. I don't really remember. I haven't looked at his HP in a long time, but that's roughly about it. It's like Shaper's like 74, Maven's 51, and I think Cirrus is around 75, 77, something like that. Anyway, that is the core crux of the build and single target. So if anybody is confused by the math that I did, basically it works like this. Basically this is a 25 times multiplier to our damage because Vaal Flicker is not in PoB, right? And the way that that's how we're getting our, our 25 hits in. And then basically all of those hits will deal damage at once, which will proc Impaler for the base hit amount of this number. And because it is getting 5 impales, which is, it's 50% of this number, which is the 0.5. And then we times 5 after that because the 5 hits after this, because you can't take the damage of an impale on the hit that applies the impale, just so we're clear. You'll basically get half of this number 5 times, and then the base actual damage of the hit. That is the way the math is. Now, there's a lot of really cool things we can do to juice the damage here. So you'll notice that I have things like focus checked and stuff like that. I'm just gonna explain all the mechanics behind Vaal Flicker Strike and why this, like, why I built around this and how it works before I get into the actual build. I'll just timestamp it. If you don't care about any of this and you just want to play the build, then I guess skip this stuff and look at the tree and whatnot. So, you may say like, Fizz, you're padding because you have focus checked. So no, here's the cool thing. So we can see our attack rate already, right? So all we need to do is, we know that Vaal Flicker Strike hits 25 times. So 25 divided by 7.8 in this case. Okay, I did times. 25 divided by 7.8, right, is 3.2, which means we will finish our Vaal Flicker Strike cast in 3.2 seconds. Now, this is important because Fortify lasts 5 seconds, okay? And Focus Craft, which we're using the Focus Shock Craft here, lasts for 4 seconds. So what we're aiming for here is to have as much leeway with the Focus Craft as we can get. So what this means here is that when we pop our focus, we will shock the boss, and we will be able to fit our entire Vaal skill within the shock window before the shock wears off the boss. So clicking this is not padding. The banner is also not planted here. And the banner, so the way that all of this will work is you'll pop your focus, you'll throw your banner down, and you'll throw your totems down. Not in that order. You'll throw your totems down. You'll throw the banner down as you hit your Vaal Blade Flicker, and then you'll hit focus at the same time. Like, you can hit the banner and the focus at the same time. It's all instant cast. So you would hit them at the same time effectively. And the cool thing here is that when the banner is planted, due to Bannerman, you get a bunch more damage. You can see that this goes up by 300k on the end hit. And you may say, like, Pride, maximum effect. Yes, and in the case of bossing, this is not padding whatsoever. You will have maximum effect of your Pride during the boss, right? It only takes a few seconds to hit max. So by the time you even get Vaal Blade Flicker, it will be maxed. And then with Bannerman, what it does is when you place a banner, you get 30% increased attack damage. So even if you don't have any stages on the banner, you'll still want to throw it down. But here's the really cool thing. And this is more math, so forgive me. If your banner has stages, say you're fighting a Conqueror at the end of a map, or Shaper after an ad phase, or Elder after an ad phase, or Maven after an ad phase, you have banner stages, right? Almost every boss in the game will have at least some ads to give you stages. And the really cool thing about the stages, because we're using War Banner, by the way, a lot of you probably know where this is going. So when you throw the banner down, it will give you, right, it says right there in the red text, it will give you adrenaline. You get adrenaline for 0.05 seconds per stage upon placing the banner. So if you have 50 stages, which is the max, meaning you've killed 50 enemies, you get 2.5 seconds of adrenaline. Now, what does adrenaline do? Well, adrenaline gives you 100% increased damage and 25% increased attack damage, amongst other things, but those are the important stats. So the important thing to note here is when you proc adrenaline, all of a sudden, your attack rate goes up drastically, right? And the reason this is important is because when you throw the banner down and you place this with any amount of stages, right? It's just 2.5 seconds max. When you use Vaal Blade Flicker, you can try to get as many of the hits as you can within that window, right? So if like we pop adrenaline here and we have 8.58 attacks per second, then you would just do the same thing. You do 25 attacks divided by 8.58. And that means it would take us 2.9 seconds to get all of our hits in. So this is roughly like 20 of our hits will have adrenaline, right? About 80% of our hits will have adrenaline. So the way that you would math this out is you would take this number, right? You would take this number with adrenaline checked and with the banner planted, right? You would take this number and then multiply it by 0.8, 80%. And then you would uncheck this, take this number, multiply it by 0.2, 20%, and then you would add them together. You would average them. And then that would be the actual damage that you'd be gaining. So if you guys are curious for an example, and we're not unchecking banner planted here because you would plant the banner as you use Vaal Blade Flicker, and then Adrenaline would wear off before Vaal Blade Flicker ends. It's such a mouthful. So the banner would still be on the ground, right? So to showcase, 5957771.1, okay, times 0.8, right, is, I'm just gonna write it down, oops, sorry. I'll throw this on my other monitor and I'll write it down here. 4766216.88, okay. And then we're gonna uncheck Adrenaline. And I'm not saying this is exact because if you wanted the exact number, you would have to math how much, like what the actual percentage uptime is, but I'm just doing a quick example so you guys understand. 615.6, and then we're gonna multiply this by 0.2, 20%, and then we're gonna add this to the other number. So we're just averaging the two together. And then this is how much damage you would gain. You'll notice that it is less than this number, but more than this number, because we average them together with accounting for how much adrenaline uptime we would have. So, this would be, this number would be slightly off because you would also have to account for the attack rate going down after adrenaline wears off. But it's, I don't think that really matters because once adrenaline is gone, then the attack rate doesn't matter anymore. So the end result should be the same. Anyway. So this would be the damage of your hit. And again, to math this out for how the damage would work with Impaler is you would take 50% of this because 5 Impale stacks, it's storing 10% of the damage per stack is 2.9 million. And then you would times this by 5 because you're getting to proc that damage 5 times. And then you would add the initial number back, which was, let me check and make sure. Oops. Okay, yeah, it was the 577. 5 plus, wait, I can just expand this, yeah. Plus 5, 7s, oops, 799, 740. And then this would be the damage that you would be getting from Vaal Flicker in total. So this is the damage that you would get from Vaal Flicker actually using it, and then like directly after using Flicker on the monster to proc the Impaler hits. So a lot of damage. That's the whole point of this, is to show you guys the math, how it works, why the damage numbers are so big. So, if you're curious about how this works for mapping, while mapping, you are just running around flickering. As soon as you get to the map boss or you get like a tanky essence monster or something, you'll pop Vaal Flicker, the monster will die and you'll move on with your life. That's how it'll work. You don't want it, excuse me. You don't want to use, Vaal Flicker for normal map clearing because it's kind of just a safety hazard. You don't deal any damage and you're teleporting around on top of mobs that aren't dying for delayed damage, and you don't need any of that damage while mapping. You will one-shot packs anyway. So it's strictly a single target nuke. That's how it works, okay? Very important. So now that we've kind of got the math out of the way and how Vaal Flicker works, let's kind of get into the tree, everything else, the gear and whatnot. Now, it's very important to realize that the gear that I'm using is very obtainable stuff. There is nothing crazy about any of this. And I have a lot of end game options for things you could do if you really wanted to min-max the damage here. And these are things that are possible to do in HCSSF. So if you're playing Software Trade or something, you can push it even farther. So I'll walk you guys through the tree. And then we'll go through the Ascendancy, and then we'll go through the gyms, and then the gear. Maybe not necessarily in that order, because I'm prone to forgetting things. So, we path down through the attack speed nodes, down the right side towards Art of the Gladiator. From there, we're pathing left through Bravery and Master of the Arena. A lot of this is typical melee Slayer Duelist nodes, right? We're going Prismatic Skin, we're going through the Marauder Start area. It's got a lot of really good armor increases, as well as life. Warrior's Blood is an amazing node. Heart of the Warrior and Born to Fight, all very, very strong nodes. You always path there. Obviously, we're pathing Golem's Blood. It's a very, very strong life node, with our life masteries being the typical plus 50 to maximum life and plus 10% to maximum life. And you don't need to grab these masteries at these locations. You could grab it here if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. We're taking Soul of Steel because a bunch of flat armor. as well as Ellie Res and Max Res is really nice. This is where we're getting our Determination Mastery for our reservation there. We're also pathing Merciless Skewering, so you want to go down the right side here to get the 10% Impale chance. And this also gives Impale effect and stuff like that. So the math that I'm doing does not account for Impale effect. That would be even more math. So these numbers that I'm throwing out don't account for Impale effect, which means that realistically the number is even higher than you see. But to account for Impale effect, to my knowledge, would obviously require more math, but math that I haven't checked on how to do yet. Just know that you're getting more damage than what the calculator says. Anyway, from there we path Champion to the Cause. This is our mana reservation efficiency wheel, and then Bannerman. It's a lot of damage when you throw the banner down. We're going up to Bastion Breaker because it's a lot of damage, and the Fizz Mastery gives us 20% chance to Impale. So at this point, we have 15 from the 2 minor nodes here, an additional 15 from Merciless Skewering itself, which puts us at 30, plus the Fizz Mastery here puts us at 50% chance to Impale so far. Pathing down towards Wrecking Ball for a bunch of attack speed and damage, and the 2-hand Mastery for 3% chance to deal triple damage. This is a very unknown component. Since it's accounting for all the damage that you would be causing with each of those hits, I don't know if this will proc independently on each one of those 25 hits, but it should add up to be quite a large, if you get lucky too, a large damage increase. Finally, we're pathing Tribal Fury. They removed, I just pathed through the right side for melee splash AoE on the tree because they removed one of side of the travel nodes. I don't remember which one it was, but it's gone. So there's only, as far as we know, there's only going to be one way to get to Tribal Fury. So don't really worry about what side I pathed on. And again, in the patch, Tribal Fury is being changed to melee splash. And then the mastery, strike range, this one is getting removed and replaced with +1 strike. So in the POB, I just did ruthless hits because that mastery doesn't exist yet, and I didn't want to click something that would actually affect the build. It's just to showcase that a passive is being spent here, okay? From there, Call to Arms and Bloodless. You may be wondering what are we using Call to Arms with? Call to Arms is for Enduring Cry, so we can generate endurance charges. That's where we're getting our endurance charges from. We path Inexorable. You're saying, why Inexorable? You don't self-hit, so you're not generating endurance charges like you would on Bone Shatter. True, but when you're flicker striking, you are standing still, even while teleporting around. You're teleporting, you're not moving. So all this increased armor you get while stationary accounts. I wonder if this, yeah. So this is a good example. This is what you're getting while flicker striking. Plus 8% max hit for Fizz and all elements, and a total increase of 15% armor. So definitely worth taking, especially the nodes leading up to it. 150 flat armor with 24% increased before getting up there it's a really good 3-pointer. Moving on from there, we pick up Juggernaut, Harpooner. Again, this is 10% chance to Impale here, which puts us at 60%, 10% Impale effect, which again is increasing our damage, but I didn't math that out. And then 20% here, which puts us at a grand total of 80%. Okay. Now from here, we path into the sword nodes because we are going swords, and I'll get into why when we get into the gear section. So we get some cool things here. We get attack speed and whatnot. And then the end node here gives 200 flat accuracy, 20% increased damage, and 8% attack speed. So very, very good. The accuracy there helps a lot with precise technique, which we do path on the build. And for the sword mastery, we are grabbing 8% chance to gain a frenzy charge when you hit a unique enemy. This is a big point, or this is a big part of why we went swords. Basically, because we are not scaling, crit, and because we're not going elemental, and because we're not a raider, we're limiting a lot of the options we have to actually sustain frenzy charges on single target, like on basically pure bossing. This won't be an issue at all while clearing, because between Blood Rage, Frenzies, and all the other avenues we have of generating them, you will never, ever, ever run out of frenzy charges while mapping. This is only for like, you're in Shaper's arena and you're just holding down right click on Shaper and you need to sustain frenzies. That's all this is for. Anyway, so 8% chance to gain frenzy charges when you hit a unique enemy there. Coming up, and we grab Barbarism for that fatty, +1 max fire res, some generic res pathing up, and then, you know, just life. Okay. So now I'm back towards the right side of the tree. Obviously, Flicker Strike relies on frenzy charges, so we grab an extra frenzy charge here. The frenzy charge duration isn't bad either. With a jewel, for the jewel here, I put life and one mana reservation efficiency roll here. We don't know. For those of you who don't know, in 3.20, you will be able to roll mana reservation efficiency on jewels. We don't know what the possible roll ranges are, but in the showcase, they showed 7%, which has been pretty standard for like all the implicits and all the gear and a lot of the nodes and stuff. So it's safe to assume that we can at least very easily get 7% mana reservation on a jewel. And this isn't mandatory by any means, but I threw it on there because at least early game, it should help. So as we do, because we're a Slayer, we pick up Vaal Pact and we pick Vitality Void with the, with the Leech Mastery for, you know, 20% maximum total life recovery per second from Leech. We grab Thick Skin and we take Entrench for that fat spell suppression and the Mastery for an additional 12%. Finally, Precise Technique. This is like the Slayer go-to nowadays. Impact gives like so much accuracy baseline, as well as we're using swords. So we get 200 flat accuracy there. We're running precision on the arrogant setup, the same as you do in a Bone Shatter build, as well as using War Banner. And we have a bunch of accuracy on the implicit of our sword as well. So another part of going swords was to make gearing very easy, because previously, Precise Technique was a lot easier to do in like 3.17, for example, but patch over patch, they've nerfed crafting, gearing, and spell suppression rules in general. So the ability to like craft accuracy gear got nerfed substantially, as well as the ability to roll that, because the divine changes and losing the ability to like divine items with harvest was a massive nerf to because accuracy rolls are so like variable. Within the same tier, you can have 3 accuracy. You can have 300 accuracy or like 450 accuracy within the same tier. Like the variable rolls on accuracy are massive. Which is a huge nerf to Precise Technique. And then you have spell suppression being super hard to get. Now, it's very hard to actually cap it, especially if you're not anointing, which got even more difficult because they nerfed like T1 spell suppression. They nerfed the amount of spell suppression on gear quite a lot. And then T1 spell suppression is now I-85, and it's T1 is significantly less spell suppression than T1 used to be, right? So there's a lot of nerfs that came through. That pretty much, they were mostly indirect nerfs just to like crafting and gearing, but it very much hurt like the gear curve of Precise Technique and the ability to actually run this node comfortably. So us running swords and getting so much accuracy, so just using my sword, which just only has accuracy on its implicit, plus having precision, War Banner, and this Blade Master, I had 4,000 accuracy baseline. Like without having any gear on my character at all, completely naked, just having a sword, I have like 4,300 accuracy, which is insane because when you run a Precise Technique build, you have naturally less life. See, it's only 5.6k. So we got, you know, like 75% of the accuracy we needed literally for free, which is very, very cool. Makes gearing a lot easier, especially on League Start, easing into early mapping and whatnot. Anyway, after that, we path down towards the sword nodes. So these sword nodes are actually pretty good. We get 4 additional melee strike range here, which is going to feel pretty good considering the, you know, the strike range nerf that we're getting. I've heard the number thrown around a lot from reputable people that 30% increased range on strikes is roughly equal to about 10 to 15 strike range, depending on how much strike range you have on the tree. So being able to get, you know, 4 back is pretty decent, and it kind of helps mitigate the nerf, right? Finally, we get our last 20% chance to impale from this extra sword mastery itself. So this will put us at 100% chance to impale. And finally, by the way, this is the YouTube video. It's not me that's skipping. It's not my microphone. If it keeps doing it, I will skip the song. So we have 20% increased damage with hits against marked enemy. We have 10% increased effective marks and culling strike against marked enemy with the mark mastery for 10% chance to gain a frenzy charge whenever you hit your marked enemy. So, how are we sustaining frenzy charges on single target? We'll get into that before we do anything else. From the tree alone, we have 10% chance from our Mark Mastery, and we have 8% chance from our Sword Mastery. This is 18%. Flicker Strike baseline has a 15% chance to give you a Frenzy Charge on hit, right? Those two together is 33%. Now, when you quality your Flicker Strike, it gets an additional 5%, which puts us to 38%. And when you quality Poacher's Mark, it gives you an additional 5% chance to get a Frenzy Charge on hit, which puts us at 43% chance. Now, with 5 Frenzy Charges and a 43% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge on hit, while also using Multi-Strike, meaning we will only need to expend a Frenzy Charge once every 3 hits, while attacking at a rate of basically 8 times a second. This means we should never really run out of Frenzy Charges while bossing. Like, the chance is like 1 in thousands, right? And if it ever does run out, you would just wait like the very short cooldown and then Flicker Strike again, and then you would immediately start sustaining again. So 5 Frenzy Charges for a Flicker Strike build might sound a little bit monka, but it should sustain itself no problem with basically a little bit shy of 50% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge on hit. It should be quite comfortable. And again, the only time that this would ever matter, like literally ever, is for pinnacle bossing when there's nothing else around. It doesn't matter on map bosses or anything else like that. You will pop Vaal Blade Flicker. I did it. You'll pop Vaal Flicker and they will just die. And that'll be the end of it. And you don't need to worry about Frenzy Charges. And obviously while mapping, you will never run out of Frenzy Charges simply because you have that base 43% chance with, I forget to put Blood Rage in my links. I did. Okay, so let me throw that in real quick. And the base 25% chance on Blood Rage, which is insane. And that's on kill, by the way. That is on kill, and you're killing like a trillion mobs in a screen. You know what I mean? So there's no way you would ever run out of frenzies while mapping. Anyway, that is that. So, where was I? Oh, the frenzy charge here. No, the marks. So from there, we'll get into the Ascendancy. Obviously, we're running Slayer. There are a few reasons for this. And ultimately, initially when I planned the tree, I pathed all the way up here and I grabbed Fervor for the additional Frenzy Charge, and I did not path down here. And I grabbed Mark the Prey instead because it's a very strong node by itself, and marked enemies take 10% increased damage. The crappy thing here, though, and I needed the Mark Mastery for the extra Frenzy Charge chance, right? The crappy thing here, though, is that we don't need cast speed because we're using Mark on hit. We don't need the crit chance from the travel node because we don't crit. And we don't really care if they have reduced accuracy rating because we're only going to need this on single target. And all of our evasion comes from our Jade Flask, which we're not going to have up for the majority of a single target encounter. So none of this really benefits us whatsoever. It's only Mark the Prey. So I decided to reroute the tree down this way, drop this Frenzy Charge here. And I liked pathing up here because you got more leeway with Earring because you had Intuition, which is more life and spell sup. But I decided to drop that, path down here, grab the Sword Node, and Mark for Death instead. And it seemed redundant to have Headsman when you also have Mark for Death and you have Coaling Strike here, because if you already have Coaling Strike, then you're basically getting a better Coaling Strike, and then while mapping some movement speed, which Flicker Strike already gives us movement speed, and we're teleporting around 90% of the time anyway, so it doesn't really do a lot for us. And when we're not teleporting, we're going to be leap slamming for the most part, and leap slam isn't changed by movement speed. So it's like 10% attack speed and a better Coal, which is redundant when we already have Coal. So I decided to drop that and go for Masterful Form instead, which gives us our +1 Frenzy Charge. So we got to take the points out of here. And this makes our maximum Endurance Charges equal to our maximum Frenzy Charges. So in the original tree, I had this, excuse me, I'm losing my voice again because I stream for, I'm losing my voice. I originally had Vigor clicked as well for the +1 maximum Endurance Charges. But ultimately, just unclicking that, saving another passive point, taking Masterful Form makes our max Endurance Charges equal to 5 as well, which when running Enduring Cry will keep us at a maximum of 5 Endurance Charges all the time. So, and then the travel node is pretty good too, because it gives even more duration. So that's the Ascendancy. If you guys don't know the other nodes, Bane of Legends is you cannot take reflected physical damage, 10% more damage if you've killed recently, and 20% more damage with hits and ailments against unique enemies. Whereas Brutal Fervor is your typical Slayer Overleech, and you take 10% reduced damage while leeching. Impact. This is what makes Clear feel so amazing on Slayer. So the travel node up to it gives 10% increased AoE, which is good. And then it basically gives you 5% increased AoE per enemy killed recently, up to 50%. Now, that may sound like it's hard to stack, but it's not really. You get 50% increased AoE, 60% when accounting for the minor node leading to it, 60% increased AoE if you've killed 10 monsters recently, which I don't know if you've played Path of Exile before, but you kill like 100 monsters every 5 seconds. So this is up basically at maximum effect for 90% of the mapping. And this has a lot of synergy with Melee Splash. It has a lot of synergy with Impaler as well. So the Melee Splash AoE is getting increased by that generic AoE, as well as Impaler. So the end result is that you'll right click and things will be dying to, it's almost like Bone Chatter-esque. I did test this, by the way, both in like low tier maps, just to see how the clear would actually feel in reality. And in Blood Aqueducts, and like you right click something and something like way off in Zimbabwe dies. So it does work. It does feel very satisfying. It feels very, this build in a lot of ways feels like automated Bone Shatter, where it kind of moves for you. And then, except you get like a single target nuke that you just get to hit, and it just does a massive amount of damage. Like you get a massive single target nuke. It feels very Bone Shattery in a way, except, you know, you get to like, you're like hacking. Anyway, and then deal 15% more melee damage to enemies based on proximity, as well as something that really enables precise technique, 50% increased global accuracy rating. So those are the Ascendancy nodes. Excuse me, man, what is with the hiccups? 50% increased global accuracy, which helps us run precise technique. That's the Ascendancy nodes. Yeah, that's everything on the tree. So now we will get into, we'll get into the gym links. So, Flicker Strike, we're running it with multi-strike. It's basically mandatory on this build. I'm not really sure how this will, I'm pretty sure multi-strike can't support Vaal skills at all. Technically, there is maybe some shenanigans while bossing. If you wanted to go like full degen, you could probably like, when your Vaal Flicker is ready, you could probably like gem swap real quick and then cast it, then go back. But no, you, I don't know. I don't know if it can support it or not. I'm not even gonna try to theory about that, because whatever, ignore me. I'm getting sidetracked. Okay, anyway, so we're running multi-strike, which is basically mandatory for a Flicker Strike build to like have it be comfortable and to also sustain your frenzy charges. The multi-strike, since it has that auto targeting feature, will kind of like carry you to mobs by itself. Whereas if you don't have this, it will feel very like jarring and snappy constantly. It makes the skill feel a lot smoother. Melee Fizz, Close Combat Support, Brutality, and Fortify. These are all just generic, you know, damage gyms. There's nothing really special to talk about there. In our boots, we're running Poacher's Mark with Mark on Hit, linked with Life Tap. We also have our Enduring Cry in this setup as well, so it is benefiting from the Life Tap. It's basically linked to Life Tap because otherwise it costs like 60 mana or something to cast rather, which is just way too much. Why Poacher's Mark? I covered it earlier, but enemies will give you life and mana when they're hit by the attacks, and they have less Fizz damage reduction, which doesn't really matter because we're full Impale. This will matter for Impaler because you get locked out of your Impales. So like for like, again, Pinnacle bossing, this will actually make a difference. It will actually lead to more damage than it says it will in PoE, because PoE is assuming you have Impales on them. So actually, if you set your Impales to 0 here, I wonder if this would change the... Yeah, it actually is a pretty decent damage increase there. Whereas if we had max Impales... No, it's the same. Okay, so this would... take my word for it. This would be more damage when you're locked out of your impales. Anyway, aside from that, you get a flat amount of fizz damage added to your hits, which is also cool. But the biggest thing here is it's enabling us to more easily sustain frenzy charges on single target. Moving on from there, we have Pride. And again, you may not need to run this. If you find that you're sustaining frenzy charges no problem without this, and you want to drop from a 43% chance down to a 38% chance, you could just drop this, which would save you links, which is important, and I'll get into that later. It would save you links, and you could just run vulnerability, and I'll get into the vulnerability stuff later. Self-cast, of course, to double dip on that huge damage buff that it's getting. Moving on to the next, in our gloves, we have Pride with Blood and Sand, Determination, and War Banner. This is all of our R's except for Precision, which is in our helmet, linked with Arrogance, so we're reserving our life for this. Cast when damage taken, Ball Molten Shell. This is all typical, like, Slayer stuff at this point, Precise Technique stuff. In our body armor, or our weapon, I guess, I didn't really assign it a spot. Our weapon, we're running Leap Slam, Faster Attacks, Frost Blink, Ancestral Protector, Vaal Ancestral War Chief, and multiple totems. So what I may do is actually, I might just get rid of Leap Slam, Faster Attacks, and put in Blood Rage here, since I forgot to put Blood Rage in the links originally, and I was already talking on stream about dropping Faster Attacks to save a spot for an unset ring. But looks like I don't need to do that anyway. 90% of your movement throughout the map is going to be taken care of by Flicker Strike anyway, and for those of you who don't know, when you first use a movement skill, it's very fast, and then subsequent uses of that movement skill are much slower. That goes for every movement skill in the game, except for Frost Blink. Frost Blink is literally always instant, which is also very important for this build in a hardcore context, and I'll explain that soon. But effectively, my point is that we won't really be leap slamming too much, and we already, because we're a Flicker Strike build, that is stacking the shit out of attack speed and frenzy charges, we're gonna have insane attack speed anyway, because on the config, I don't even have, oh no, I do have onslaught checked, ignore me. So if we, yeah, this is, okay, I was confused for a second. A lot of jumping around. Okay, so the attack rate is 2.36. If you have faster attacks in here, it's like 2.8 or something, 2.9. See, you're still leap slamming super fast, even if you're holding it down. This won't make the build feel clunky by any means. You can take my word for it. All right, moving on from there, Frostblink. Why is Frostblink really important? Well, Frostblink is, as everyone has known by this point, if you played a melee build, Frostblink has become a mainstay in any melee build because even if you're mid leap slam, you can Frostblink out of it. It is always instant. It always cancels your movement skill or whatever you're in. It will animation cancel and instantly teleport you. This is very important for Flicker Strike because in a hardcore setting, Flicker Strike isn't very hardcore friendly because you lose control of your character effectively. You have no control over where you're going. You're just bouncing all over the place like a crackhead. Well, here's the thing. I tested this. If you Frost Blink mid Flicker Strike, you teleport away and it cancels a Flicker Strike and you're done. So if you go to Flicker Strike and you get yourself into a hairy situation, you can just hit Frost Blink and you TP out and you're good. So it's very important, and for in a hardcore context, it's mandatory to be running this. Finally, I have vulnerability here. I have it placed in an unset ring. Now I do have notes here. I can delete this since that's not relevant anymore. Basically, you can anoint Whispers of Doom on this build, or if sustaining frenzies is easy without running a quality Poacher's Mark, because if you don't have quality on Poacher's Mark, it doesn't give you anything. Again, though, you are gaining a good amount of damage from this that is not quantified by POB due to it accounting for impales. Now, when you're locked out of impales, you don't have much way of, you do have some fizz overwhelm and stuff on the tree, but you are definitely not completely ignoring armor. I accidentally clicked something. You're definitely not completely ignoring armor. So this actually, after you use Vaal Flicker, this actually becomes a decent damage boost. Anyway, if you don't need that to sustain, you can run vulnerability instead, and you don't have to worry about Whispers of Doom. But I'm going to assume right now that I need all the chance to gain Frenzy on hit that I can for single target. And once again, to reiterate, this is only for pinnacle bossing, not map bossing or anything like that. Not even super relevant for Conquerors either, because you will almost, Conquerors have like 35 mil, a T16 Conqueror is like 35, 37 mil HP. You will almost straight one-shot them with a Vaal Flicker. So it's not an issue. Finally, if you anoint Whispers of Doom, you can run Vulnerability, which is a massive, massive damage increase. As you can see, 30%. That is with the 200% increased curse effect, which is going to be in effect for self-cast curses next patch. Right? So, finally, you know, the typical totem setup: Ancestral Protector, Vaal Ancestral War Chief, and multiple totems. Now I've talked a lot in other videos about the usefulness of Ironwood and Panopticon. Why have I not gone there for the totem survivability? Simply because it shouldn't be too big of a deal on this build. Now, I was simming, like, I did like a worst case scenario POB where you go in here, I'll delete the E off that. Let's say our Flicker Strike, we don't have totems up at all. Our Flicker Strike is dealing like 2 mil damage, 2 million per second or whatever on a boss, right? We don't have any totems up or anything. We will still deal enough damage to, in a decent amount of time, generate a Vaal Flicker. So really all I'm counting on is having these totems up when you cast Vaal Flicker, and that's really it. I only want them up on a boss for when I cast Vaal Flicker, and the rest of the time, who fucking cares? I don't want to babysit them. That being said, you could, because the new totem mastery being added where the effects linger for 3 seconds, if you path through here to get this mastery, it would basically guarantee that you would have full effect of your Ancestral War Chief, Vaal Ancestral War Chief, and Ancestral Protector totem for the entire duration of your Vaal Flicker, which is very, very good. It would be a guarantee instead of, oh, if Shaper decides to turn around and hit them, they're gone. Or they get hit by a degen puddle in the middle of my Vaal Flicker, I lose that damage. But it is kind of a lot of points, right? It is a lot of investment. Especially since you can't path from this side and then drop something here because you need these strike nodes. So you have to spend a point here and go down. So it's a lot of points. It's 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 points on a tree that I also already had to like finagle a little bit to get everything I wanted in. So yeah, something you can do though. Just I am going to try to get away without it. So that is all the links. If you guys have any questions on that, feel free to let me know. Moving on to the items. So I chose Vaal Greatsword. So there were different sword bases. A lot of them are crit based, some are accuracy based. I decided to go with Vaal Greatsword because the DPS was pretty decent, but the really important thing is the base attacks per second was actually pretty low relative to other bases. A lot of the bases were 1.45 base attack speed or 1.5. Vaal Greatsword is actually 1.3, so it is a significant amount slower than the other sword bases. However, its top end damage, its bottom end damage was slightly above other bases, while its top end damage was like 30% higher. A lot of the bases were like, I don't remember exactly, but it would be like deals like, let's just say like 100 to, or yeah, like 100 to 200 damage. Vaal Greatsword was like 120 to like 250 or 260. Like the top end was like significantly higher over the other bases, as well as giving flat accuracy on the implicit. Seemed like a pretty good choice for this build. Since we already hit our attack speed kind of breakpoint that we need to fit, because the breakpoint that I'm really aiming for is to fit all 25 attacks into a 4-second window, so we can get our entire Vaal Flicker off within our shock focus window. That's where the 4 seconds is coming from. That's the kind of break point that I was aiming for in this build, and we very comfortably hit that, even though we're using a slower base here. So how are the rolls on the weapon? How good of a weapon is this? This is kind of what I have done with the POBs using base types that I'm not really familiar with. I don't know if I've ever used a sword in PoE, to be honest, outside of like Onigoroshi, because they haven't been relevant really for the entirety that I think I've been playing this game, which is sad, but it is what it is. So all I did was add three tier 3 rolls, which by no means is hard to get at all. You'll notice that there's no benchcraft or anything on this. It's just tier 3 rolls, which is incredibly easy to get. Because you don't actually even need tier 3% fizz, because the way that you're going to be crafting a weapon is you're going to be spamming contempt essences on it. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab the highest essence you can afford, probably shriekings for most people. You're just going to you're going to farm for a few hours, get a bunch of shriekings on day 1, and then just throw shriekings on, which guarantee the flat fizz damage. And then all you need is percent fizz and attack speed. Well, the good news is that really, when it comes to percent fizz, you only need the hybrid roll, because you have percent fizz damage and you have percent hybrid, which is a lower roll, but you can't benchcraft hybrid on, whereas you can benchcraft percent fizz on. What I'm getting at is you either need to roll attack speed and hybrid fizz, or hybrid fizz and normal fizz, and then you can just benchcraft on whatever you're missing. The only mandatory thing would be hybrid. Or you could just hit a tier 3% fizz roll baseline anyway, and then it's no problem. What I'm getting at here is that this is actually some people may see this and they don't know how to craft or whatever, and they go, oh my god, you can't, there's no way you're gonna get that. You could get a weapon like this literally like in SSF day 2 of the league, no problem if you league started this. This is not a crazy weapon or by any means. Just, this is very, very, very attainable, okay? So nothing done there. But by end game, you could have a sword way better than this. You're playing in trade league and you decide to get a Starforge, you are going to deal insane damage, especially because your Vaal flicker, since Starforge can shock, your Vaal flicker will do a max shock because you're hitting the boss for like 30 million damage. So you get max shock too, which is crazy. Anyway, moving on from there. We're running just normal stuff. You don't need a lot of accuracy on gear. You'll notice that my accuracy with what I have right now is 6350, which is way more accuracy than I need. I only have 5600 life, which means my accuracy on gear is mega overkill. But I just wanted to kind of like showcase some of the stats you'd be looking for on these items. It's basically life, spell suppression. My Eldritch Implicits are reduced mana cost of attacks and mana reservation efficiency. In the body armor slot, we have life and spell suppression with bench crafted on Gravicious Craft, which is the fizz taken as fire and lightning. I forgot to, I only have Pride R effect on here. What you actually want to do for your other implicit. Oops. Is just generic aura. There we go. So for the chest piece, your Searing Exarch, you want generic non-curse aura effect. And for your Eater of Worlds implicit, you want Pride for more damage. And you want Determination for more defense. I went for more damage. In the glove slot, we just, again, life and spell suppression. I also put the benchcraft here for increased damage while leeching. For our implicits on the Exarch, we want +1 strike. And for Eater, I did spell suppression, though this is largely a utility slot. If you don't need the spell suppression, you can do flat, increased flat accuracy, like +50 accuracy per frenzy charge. You can do a generic +20% increased accuracy, or you can do +3% to 5% increased damage per frenzy charge. This is mostly a utility slot to fill in whatever gaps you currently have in the build. So if you don't need spell suppression, don't take that for the implicit. Finally, in the boots, we're using Enduring Cry cooldown recovery rate for the Eater implicit, and for the Exarch implicit, we have action speed. So action speed is going to give you more damage on your normal flicker. It'll also help you clear faster and move faster in general. But if you don't, this is like the least important slot by far. As long as you're hitting the 4, getting 25 hits in with Vaal flicker in 4 seconds, as long as you're hitting that breakpoint, you don't need the action speed or anything like that. You can just, if you want to keep normal 2-tone implicits for the extra resistances, you can do that as well. Also, if you want to throw on chaos resistance on the implicit, I forget if that's Exarch or Eater, but if you want to do that instead, you can also do that. On the boots, we have, again, just life and spell sup, like every single slot's the fucking same. And then we are bench crafting on movement speed and onslaught on kill. That's how we're getting our onslaught. On our amulet, it's just life and accuracy. Now you don't even need the accuracy on this. The point is just you're gonna want some accuracy on your accessory slots to get yourself to have much. And this is pure endgame, by the way. 90%, actually everybody. I can't imagine. You're gonna be able to sustain precise technique while leveling and into starting maps baseline without any accuracy on any of your gear due to the implicit. As soon as you get the base type, because even without the base, the Vaal Greatsword base, you're gonna have like 3,000 accuracy. As soon as you throw this on, you have like 4,500 somewhere in there accuracy. So you're gonna be running precise technique without any accuracy on your gear at all to start maps with. So this isn't a big deal. It's just by the time you're like in reds and stuff, this is what you want to look at. By the time you have more life, you're gonna need probably like 1 accuracy roll on your gear, I would imagine. Anyway, all I have here is life and accuracy. There's so much wiggle room in this. I try to make these as bare bones as possible and just showcase what I like is mandatory. Because I don't want to pad like, oh, there's a bunch of flat fizz on this. Oh, and there's a bunch of this and a bunch of this. Unless it's like mandatory. Anything you get past this or decide to craft on this is a bonus. Again, as Whispers of Doom anointed, but again, if you can sustain without poachers, you can just not run that, and you can run a +1 to your max frenzy charge as anoint. Or early game, you can anoint Instinct because it's dirt cheap and it will help you cap your spell suppression easier. It's 12%. So early game, that will be my anoint before I farm that stuff up to relieve gearing pressure on spell suppression. But yeah, the bench craft is minus mana cost, Elrion craft. For the ring, I have an unset ring. Ignore the implicit. I went in and edited this. I forgot to change this. There we go. So yeah, this is just an unset ring. I only have life on it, and accuracy. These are identical. What I did was I went in and edited like you just saw. I just changed Vermilion ring to unset ring. So this is the exact same ring. The difference is that this one has an Elrion craft on it, and this one has shock nearby enemies for 4 seconds. This is the breakpoint I was talking about. You want to make sure you can fit your Vaal flicker in this 4-second window. But yeah, it's just basically life and probably accuracy on, again, just one piece. You'll probably only need accuracy on one piece. And then the rest of the stats, flat fizz, any resistance rolls you need, etc., etc., etc. Now on the belt, all I put was life here. You can put whatever the hell you need to sort yourself out. So you can get a belt with really fat resist on it. You can just benchcraft on generic % increased damage. What I'll likely go for is a belt that has 2 fat resistance rolls, like 40%, like tier 2 plus like lightning and fire res, and then benchcraft on a hybrid res roll like cold chaos to get more chaos res in there. Or what you can also do is I forget which essence it is, but craft it with essences for chaos resistance on belt, and then get like a fat 30% chaos res, and then like another resist roll of like 40%, and then do another hybrid craft, and then you get like an easy like 50 or so % chaos res just on the belt slot. That's what I do a lot with the Stygian Vises, especially if I'm playing a build that doesn't rely on a lot of stats in the belt slot. For the jewel in the belt, I just threw in life and increase effective lightning ailments so I can have a stronger shock. Not mandatory by any means. It doesn't really matter. You can throw whatever you want in the jewels and the jewel socket. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. The flasks are the same as like they always are for the most part. Divine, all of them are rolling masochists, so charge gain on hit. And then bleed removal with CB immune, granite flask with increased armor, jade flask with increased invasion, quicksilver with reduced effective shock, and quartz with reduced effective curses. The last two, well, all the suffixes are really interchangeable. It doesn't matter what goes where. But yeah. So optional things in the belt slot, you have Arn's Anguish. If you throw this in, you are dropping some survivability in exchange for a massive damage boost, which is obviously this is going to make your Vaal flicker hit way harder. This is the difference between like a 20 million Vaal flicker hit and like a 35 million Vaal flicker hit when you account for like the changing of the belt. And something else that you can fit in, if you decide to run an unset ring, an extra unset ring, so double unset ring setup to be clear, what you can do, and again, if we end up not needing Poacher's Mark to sustain frenzy charges on single target, then we won't need to run unset rings at all, because we'll be able to drop Mark on hit and Poacher's Mark, which frees up 2 gym sockets, which is really, really big. It means that, again, we won't need to run unsets, but assuming we do, you'll want 1 unset for vulnerability, and you'll want 1 unset to aggro. And you'll want 1 unset for Berserk. And there is a tech to get Rage. Now, I have it in the PoE tree. It is slightly overcapped, so to get this tree, you're going to need to drop 2 to 3 passive points. I left it overcapped, and you can decide what you want to drop if you decide to run the tech. If you're playing softcore or whatever, you can drop life nodes here. If you're playing hardcore, maybe you drop some damage somewhere. But it is ultimately up to you to decide what you want to drop. So what is the tech? So basically the changing here is we slightly change the routing of the tree from connecting here, and I drop a life node here, to connecting through here instead. Oops. There we go. Save. So yeah, you're going to need to drop 2 points, excuse me. Forgot to take that out. Yes. Hello. To fit this in, and you're saying, well, Fizz, why are you taking an axe node? Why are you taking an axe node? Cat hair, dude. Why are you taking an axe node on a sword build? Well, here's the cool thing. These nodes aren't entirely useless. So this node here is useless. It's only damage for axes. However, this node is 10% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks, which is actually pretty good. That means that what we can realistically do is drop a passive like this sword mastery here and replace it with increased strike range, or just not replace it with anything. And that's one of the passives that we drop, right? Because what we can then do is go back to our glove slot here, and I don't remember, Impale. Yeah, so it's Eater. Excuse me. So if you don't need that spell suppression in the glove slot, what you can do is get Impale chance on your gloves instead, right? To run this, which would save you this 1 point here. And then you only need to sacrifice 1 passive somewhere, which becomes even easier to do, right? Because you're getting 10% here. So that's big. So you can cap your Impale chance that way. So the next part is also important. 12% increase Impale effect. This is also increased damage. This is damage for both clearing for normal flicker and increased damage for your Vaal flicker. So these nodes, these travel nodes are not entirely useless. But the reason that we're traveling here is so we can grab the axe mastery for attacks with axes or swords. Don't know why this is here, and this wouldn't be like a generic node for axes and swords, but it is what it is. Attacks or swords grant 1 rage on hit, no more than once every second. Now, here's the thing. Flicker hits a lot very fast. As soon as you click this, you will be at max rage all the time in a map, which will make you clear way faster because you'll get way more move speed, you'll get way more damage, and you'll get way more attack speed. It also means that when you get to the map boss or the conqueror, or if you're bossing, once you've built up your rage, you can pop Berserk and dump it. And if you look here, Berserk is a massive damage increase for the build. The only reason that I'm not running this baseline is because it comes at the cost of gym sockets. And typically running a double unset setup feels pretty bad. So in an ideal world, we don't need to run Poacher's Mark to sustain frenzy charges on single target, because if that is the case, then we get to throw Berserk in our boots as well as vulnerability, and then we get to run a double Vermilion instead, which is much more preferable being hardcore, obviously. So that's the ideal world, but until we actually play, we don't know. This is something I could test without playing it in the league, but I have no desire because I don't have a character that's acclimated to this. I would have to like level this from scratch and do a lot to go out of my way to test this. So it's not worth it for me. Anyway, so Berserk is absolutely worth running because you pop it and you get a 23% damage increase for the build. What this means is, while generally mapping, it means you don't need to use Vaal Flicker for like essence monsters and stuff. You could just pop Berserk and kill them with normal Flicker. But, which is what we care about, Vaal Flicker, the huge damage nukes. If we look at the damage of this baseline, and then we click Berserk, that is a massive, massive, massive damage increase that's increasing your hit by. So you're going from like a 19-ish million Vaal Flicker hit here, all the way up to whatever, increasing it by like a quarter, right? So you're going up to like 19 mil to like 24 million just for using Berserk. That's it. Like you don't have to do anything else. You just hit Berserk and then hit Vaal Flicker. Like it's crazy, right? It's crazy. So if you can fit this in, you definitely can. There is also another alternative, but I don't know how to, I don't remember what the math was here. But basically, we are assuming a self-cast vulnerability here. That's what the 200% increased curse effect is. Now, what you could do in order to still only run one unset ring while running Berserk is you put Berserk in your unset ring and then use a Warlord influenced ring to get vulnerability on hit, which won't be as strong because you're not self-casting it. Now, vulnerability next patch, even if you're using it on a trigger setup, will still be stronger than it is right now, but it won't be as strong as self-casting it. So because I don't remember what the numbers are, I can't map this out to tell you guys if it's actually worth it to do that or not. So whenever I do a build diary on this, I will cover that. And these questions that I'm not able to answer now, I will be able to answer once I've played the build. But yeah, Berserk with the Berserk Rage Tech, definitely worth implementing if you can. Also, if you're curious, if you account for the chance to impale here and the increased impale effect here, as well as having maximum rage, that changes the 4 points here to be about 5 to 5% damage point efficient, meaning you're getting about 5% damage per node here. Where on average, a good node is somewhere between 3 to 3.5% damage per passive clicked to get there. That means like, if like, let's say skull cracking, or let's say Hardy gives me 9% increased damage just by itself, but the previous two nodes give me nothing, but Hardy itself gives me 9%. That means that we would take 9 and divide it by the 3 passives it takes to get there. That would be 3% damage per node, effectively 3% damage per passive point spent. That's the way we're breaking it down. So that means that this is very point efficient to run, actually, even though it may seem like a meme. It's very efficient. So I've included that in the tree. And again, you just have to decide what points you want to drop. Really, it's just at a level 98 tree, it's just 1 point. Because the optimal thing to do would be to drop either it doesn't matter what mastery you drop. It could be this one or it could be this one. It doesn't really matter what you drop, but you would drop one of these and then just get Impale implicit on your gloves instead. Another thing is, if you don't need this Impale anymore, you could actually take all of the passives out of this if you're okay with losing the strike range. As you can see, all 3 of these is only a 10% damage increase, and you can get, okay, don't step on my keyboard. You're gonna turn it off. All 3 of them together is 10%, which isn't bad, but it does give you a lot of breathing room in terms of what you need to go, because originally we're only pathing it to get max Impale. So if you don't need that, you can spend those points on more life. You'd spend those points on more damage somewhere else. Like you could grab 3 points here for Razor's Edge instead. Is just a lot more damage, and having that overwhelm is going to help when you're doing pinnacle bosses and your Vaal Flicker is on cooldown. So stuff like that. These are adjustments that you can make, but I'll go more into changes that I decide to do for that when I do the build diary, when and if those changes I was talking about happen. So yeah, that's the Rage Tech. Now I think, God, this was probably the longest video in the world. 1 hour and 15 minutes. Holy shit. Okay, so I think that's everything. This one is very long. There was a lot of math. I really hope I didn't leave anything out, but if I did, forgive me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, the POV will be down below. I'm really losing my voice. Like I said before, keep an eye out. The upload count will probably increase leading up to the league, so keep an eye out for that. If you guys like the video, please do leave me a like. Even if you didn't like the video, feel free to leave me a thumbs down and tell me what you think I can do better in the comments. Also, sorry, I'm like scatterbrained here. It's 1 in the morning. Also, if you want to support me, please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to see these builds, me making these POBs on stream, help with your own builds, or watch me push the HCSSF ladder on League Start, follow me over on Twitch. Links for everything are down in the description. If you want short form opinions that don't warrant videos, follow me on Twitter. I need more Twitter followers. And finally, if you want to talk to me or people in my community, join my Discord. I am in there all the time, talking 24/7, even talking to myself, monologuing about build ideas and stuff in general chat all the time, every single day. And I have a build help channel in there where I am very active helping people with their build, or with help they need from my builds, all free of charge. Everything's free. There's no like, you know, like Patreon related stuff or anything like that. It's all free. So yeah, if you want to support me in one of those forums, it's all free to do all that. So I appreciate it if you do. I kind of want to I kind of want to set like an ambitious goal of like maybe having like 5K subs by the end of 3.20. That's 3 months to double my sub count. So we'll see if I can make it. Anyway, the next video, hopefully tomorrow, we'll have the gyms. So I'll probably have a video up just talking, which will probably just be a grab from my stream. But I will probably have a video up talking about my opinion on the fully released gyms tomorrow night, assuming they come out. They said Thursday at the latest. I really hope it's not Thursday. I hope it's, today's Tuesday. So, well, today was Monday for me, Tuesday for them. They said Tuesday at the earliest, Thursday at the latest, which for us would be, for me rather, I guess would be Wednesday at the latest. Anyway, I really hope it's not Wednesday. I hope it's tomorrow. So I'll have a video out talking about the gyms, the level 20 gyms, what it means for the videos I've already released, what looks good, what looks bad, etc., etc. And then I'll have the video out for Vaal Blade Flurry. Look forward to that one. It is the most unhinged POB and most experimental, crazy hipster shit I have ever made. And there's a Slayer Impale Cleave POB that still needs to come out as well. And then I have like a top 10 like, you know, meta starters. I have a lot of videos to come out, so just keep your eye out for those. Anyway, I need to wrap this up. This video is so long. I'm so sorry. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe. Have a good league start.